Three, two, one, here we go. RAINMAN'S Take podcast. Observations on the world we live in. My take on current events and other topics of interest. Also interviews with some really cool people. So let's get the conversation going. Hey everybody, it's the Rain Man. Welcome back. I want to introduce my guest, Julie Thunder. Julie, how you doing today?
I'm good, Brian. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Julie, if you all remember, and I had a conversation last October during her campaign. She was running against Mayor Catherine Blakespear for mayor of Encinitas last November in the elections. And I wanted to have her back on today to not only talk about her experience there, but also what she's been doing lately in terms of what's going on here in Encinitas. And although she didn't win the election for mayor, she's been super active. And I wanted to kind of get an update on how things are going, because there's a lot of moving parts here in Encinitas that I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of. But Julie has her finger on the pulse, and we're going to talk about all those things. So Julie, thanks again for joining me.
You're welcome.
All right. So why don't we just go ahead and start from the very beginning. So the election last November, give me your take on how that whole process went. I mean, that was your first time, if I remember correctly, that was your first time running for any public office.
For anything. And it was a crazy thing for me to do, but I saw an opening and I had massive support from people who have ran successfully before. And I thought, if ever anyone has a shot at it, it's me, and it's now. And I had my family supporting me. But near the end, the last probably 6 weeks, I felt very confident. I thought for sure people in Encinitas are waking up and they're hearing my message. But during that time, Mayor Blakespear, my opponent, and the PACs that supported her were just flooding people's mailboxes with stories that I was a Trumper and that I'm a this and I'm a that and a closet Republican, and you know what they do. So I think with the whole Trump factor of this last election in November, I think a lot of people just got scared and backed off. Either that or I got dominioned, which is my new verb.
What does that mean? What does dominion mean?
Dominion is the software that ran a lot of states' elections.
Got it.
And I have no idea. I just think it's kind of funny. It became a word, so I use it.
Yeah. And no, folks, we are not conspiracy theorists here.
No, I'm not. No.
Exactly.
No, in fact, Brian, I'm very proud that being a first-time candidate against a long-term incumbent, I still earned 45% of the vote. Yeah. So yeah, I think if I really got dominion, it would have been like 20% of the vote.
Yeah, and you know so what was after all was said and done? Was it that she just had too much money behind her and they were able to do that kind of last minute push? I mean,
that definitely was a factor. Yeah. With the money and just sending out mailers, those things are really expensive.
I know.
And she had 2 PACs supporting her, so her campaign was sending out mailers, and both PACs were sending out mailers. So it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. We'll see how elections go forward, but a lot of people were really, really bummed out. But yeah. We're back to normal now.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I find actually shocking. But like you said, this is the new normal, is that there are actually PACs for local government elections. And are those PACs, are they coming from the state? Who are these people?
Well, I can tell you exactly. One of them was a wealthy man in Cardiff that works for Facebook. He's a VP at Facebook. So he supports, and he makes no bones about being a far left progressive, and which was really disturbing to me because it's a nonpartisan office.
Right.
And he was very clear and upfront about his far left drive and willing to put his money to keep candidates who are on the far left in office. So it's just hard to get anywhere when you have someone that's worth millions of dollars and his name's all over Facebook. The other PAC was put together by 3 or 4 developers who all of them benefited from the housing element upzoning that happened 2 years ago. So that's really suspicious to me, and it should be to everybody in Encinitas.
Absolutely. And that,
A lot of money.
right there, you'd said that the mayor's position in Encinitas is supposed to be a bipartisan. Is she a conservative? Is she a Democrat? What's her? I mean, obviously she's a Democrat. And she's a far left Democrat. Obviously.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Okay. And man, it's so frustrating because this is what I see the problem with all elections, but I'm not really sure how to get rid of how to get money out of the equation.
I couldn't agree more, Brian. And the problem is, honestly, from my heart, I don't care if you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Green Party, Libertarian, a nothing like me. I'm no party preference. Just focus on our city and allow the council to mix it up. Right now, we have 5 proclaimed progressives on our council, and that they're not just Democrats, they're on the far end of Democrats. Yeah. And when you get a council like that, you get things like $70,000 spent on a homeless action plan, and the plan is created by a company that's well connected with the state Senate, who's putting all these rules and regulations on how you can treat the homeless, and we're giving them money. And all they're doing is duplicating what they did for San Francisco in Encinitas.
Yeah.
And the public's, got their pitchforks out banging, no, don't do it. But they have support from their party and party elders.
Well, and that, if you think about just the historical progressive movement that's always been their plan, is to get yourself entrenched in start local and then work your way up. And it's a shame that our side doesn't think that way,
or that any side doesn't.
Yeah. Because you can't.
And it was a smart move by the Democrats. They started loading up our school boards, and especially in California. And look what's happening right now. We're one of the last states to put our kids back to school. Yeah. And so.
Okay, well, and we could spend the whole time talking about that, because that's just supremely frustrating to me, and that's in my mind the cause of a lot of our problems. So you just recently wrote op-ed commentary in the Coast News, the local newspaper here in Encinitas, just talking about the city council, because there was an opening for one of the council seats. Talk a little bit about that and what happened with that.
Okay, well, it was Councilwoman Jody Hubbard who resigned right after the holidays. Sadly, she has a cancer diagnosis and didn't feel she could serve anymore. So she resigned, and then the council came back and the council had a choice. They could hold a special election, because Jody was only at the 2-year mark. She had a full half of her term left, 2 more years left to go. So they could have held a special election, or they could appoint a replacement. So they used the argument that a special election would cost $408,000, but that was citywide. They didn't even consider what a district-only special election would be. And with 4 districts, it would be a fourth of that. So about 100 and some change, $100,000.
And Jody, was she what was her political leaning? Was she more of a
Democrat? Democrat.
She was as well, but was she as progressive as?
I don't think so.
Okay.
She actually went against the group a few times. She seemed more independent.
Okay.
And I appreciated that. She seemed more reachable too.
Gotcha. So when she was there, it was basically split evenly. You got 4 really hardcore progressives that were basically backing Mayor Blakespear pretty much on anything, and then you had 4 others that they would need their consent, at least one of them, to get anything accomplished. Is that kind of what the breakup was of the? Well,
there's only 5 on council, so it was the mayor and 4 council members. And over 90% of the time they vote 5-0. So there aren't any real independent thinkers, but of the votes that weren't 5-0, several of them were Jody's. but there still weren't very many.
Gotcha. Okay. So really even if somebody that had a little bit more of a conservative bent, or somebody like you, because you actually ran for that seat, even if it was somebody like you still had a major uphill battle to kind of be a buffer against a lot of these things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say that I really wanted it. My heart wanted to sit up there and be the lone minority. That would not be fun for anybody. But here's what could happen if we got somebody in on council, even if they didn't have a majority. We would have a voice, number one.
Yeah.
They could speak out loud, not limited to 3-minute sound bites. And number two, we would have somebody that could let, for example, the 45% of people that voted for me, that's 45% of people in our city that don't feel represented. All of those people, if we could get somebody in, would at least have someone to talk to them and let them know what's really going on. Give them a heads up when legislation or when city mandates are coming down the road. Let them know what projects they should be considering. We have nobody now. We're completely shut out of the process.
And so they decided against doing a special election,
Yeah.
special vote, and so it went straight to, they just picked their person. And who took that spot?
A woman named Joy Lines, Lyndes, and she seems very nice. I have no issues with Joy whatsoever. She's well connected. She's a Democrat. She donated to Blakespeare, and her husband's on the board of the Pacific View elementary school that's been sitting fallow for so long. But I have no qualms about her. I hope she does well, and I hope she'll take people who live here in Cardiff at heart, and all of D3. But what they did is they were so focused on getting someone that was like Jody, and then Jody actually got on the call for the meeting and requested Planning Commissioner Brett Farrow, who was one of the applicants, but they didn't even consider that. I think they knew who they were going to put in there long ago.
They just went through the motions, huh?
Yeah, I think they went through the motion.
Amazing. Well, let's talk about, so what have you been doing since the election? Talk to me about some of the things that you're kind of passionate and you're working on as far as the city is concerned right now.
Well, I have been working with Encinitas Viewpoint, but I've just recently decided to put my time somewhere else because I've started a really exciting project called Encinitas Neighbors Coalition. And what that is going to do is, and I've already spoken to several groups about this coming in with us, is we're trying to get all these little groups around the city that are fighting a high density project near them. For example, Olivenheim with the Goodson project. There's a group called Leucadia Cares that are fighting the project that'll be placed at Jesus is Lord at the north end of Vulcan Avenue. There's a group at Fox Point. And there's more to come because there's still 10, 12 more projects to come online quickly. So these groups are all fighting the same fight at the same time, and they don't know each other. So in the meantime, while we have all these little groups in Encinitas doing that, we have the state of California, the state legislature, trying to come down on us with bills that are just going to make it even harder for all of us and make our town worse. And there's a lot of cities, I talked about this in my campaign a lot, there's dozens now of cities that are fighting back against the state. And, because of what we spoke about just a moment ago with our council, they won't join that fight. They're all in with Tony Atkins, the San Diego state senator, who is behind a lot of the bills, Scott Wiener from San Francisco. There's people in the legislature that believe that single family housing is not right, and that any house can be sold, should be able to be sold to any developer, and he can build anything on it. He can take down all the trees regardless. He can put, ultimately 6 to 8 units on a single family home lot. And this is what our council supports. So what myself and a few other people are doing are creating a group that we can start at the state legislature level, or we can fight at that level, while we're supporting and putting together the groups in Encinitas that are trying to keep their neighborhoods safe.
So let's take a step back, because this is really important. This gets to the crux of a lot of these issues with these neighborhood coalitions. Basically, these people, and it's all in the name of high density housing.
Well,
what's the reason behind these insane ideas?
they believe that high density housing, if they cram more high density housing into cities, that by nature that will become more affordable. They think, just like the Goodson project, there'll be so many, there are 280 something apartments in Olivenheim, right? They think it'll be affordable to people who, like our service sector in Encinitas, the waiters and the grocery store workers and the teachers. It's been proven that it won't. A lot of those, in a city like Encinitas, a lot of those units will go to Airbnb. People will scoop them up. Even if they're rental units, they're not going to be that cheap. And the requirement right now for affordability in the new bills is not there at all. They're just demanding high density, not even affordability right now.
And so then that begs the next question is why, if they're not going to be affordable housing? Is there a financial incentive for these guys to be doing this? I mean, that's almost the way I look at it. They're getting kickbacks from the developers for doing it.
100%.
Yeah, really.
That's exactly what happened. And the developers lobby and the BIA are pushing really hard for this because there's not that much, we're not allowing the big developments out in East County anymore, right? Those are really hard to get through. The big sprawling, there will be no more building at Temecula or Rancho California or a Deer Valley Parkway. So one thing developers can do is that the big word is infill. Well, if we can add more units with infill. And the other thing is the state keeps saying, but I absolutely don't believe it's true, that our housing shortage needs to be addressed. And the state won't recognize with COVID that we don't need to live in cities anymore to work. And they won't recognize that people are leaving the high density because they don't want to be stuck there with another pandemic.
Right.
So it's really, nothing makes sense. So when things don't make sense to me, I look outside of the box and try to put it together myself, like you just did.
Yeah. And so the group that you're putting together, you will, where are you in that process?
Well, we've submitted our first letter to the legislature opposing one of the current bills called SB 9, Senate Bill 9. And so we'll continue doing that. There's another one, SB 10, that we're about ready to submit. In the meantime, we're talking to the local groups in Encinitas to try to be an umbrella organization for them to share information and to just keep kind of like a storage portal of documents and information. So that's in the process right now. We have a website, but there's nothing on it. So I don't even know what to say about it.
So all those laws coming down from the state, those are already set in stone. The state
they are about to be voted on. They're in various stages.
Gotcha. And so let's just assume that the Encinitas City Council actually wanted to push back on some of these super high density and not actual affordable housing projects, Goodson's in particular. Let's say that just for argument that Encinitas wanted to push back, would they be able to?
I don't think they would at the ones that have gone through.
Right.
The first 15 properties that they deemed as state certified housing element properties. I don't think they can go back on that, but they can be less friendly to the developers and limit what's happening, limit the number of, or expect a higher number of affordable units. We accepted a really low number from developers for those properties. We told the developers they only had to build 15% affordable, and we told the state we were giving them 100% affordable. So we're already in a huge deficit for affordable units per the state mandate. Now, like I said, the bills coming down the line, the new bills are taking away that affordability requirement, but the 15 properties we have right now are still under it.
So that is where, and I remember talking with Dan Vaughn about this. Dan runs one of these neighborhood coalitions, and I remember talking to you about it. The state, right off the bat, they say they want affordable housing, but they give these very tiny hurdles in terms of the number of units that need to be affordable. So it's they're actually not trying to solve the problem. They say they are. And is that basically all, as long as they have that soundbite saying that they're for the affordable housing, they're good?
Well, actually, I think that's the key. You just hit on it. Because you have half of our town saying, no, we just have to accept the hit with all these units because we need affordable housing. So I'm constantly trying to educate people that there's not going to be enough affordable housing to make a difference.
Yeah.
And there's no control on that affordable housing versus there are other cities that do their own 100% affordable projects to satisfy the mandate of affordable housing so that people don't have to drive from Escondido just to wait tables.
Yeah. Give me an example of a city that does that.
San Diego's doing it right now with Chelsea Homes. Really? They're actually building quite a bit. I can't remember if it's on the I-5. I think it's along the I-5 near Marina Boulevard.
Okay.
There's a big project right there, and there's been a few of them. So Chelsea Homes is a nonprofit. They are very crafty about finding grants, and the city works with them and finds land for them, and they work together. Nobody makes a ton of money, but Chelsea makes enough to pay people, and there's rules for that.
Right. But, so are there other groups like this Chelsea project? Are there other groups out there that Encinitas could align with? Yeah,
and we could work with Chelsea.
Really?
Yeah, we really could. We actually did it. There's a set of apartments on Vulcan called Iris. I think it's Iris. Oh gosh, I wish I would have looked it up before we got on. I didn't think we'd talk about it. Do you remember on Vulcan where the old school district office is?
Yes.
And now I think it's a school district storage yard. It's really near there. It's either a little bit north or a little bit south by RCP. Okay. It's a small apartment complex. It's all by itself. You're like, who would build an apartment complex right here? 100% affordable. That
really?
The city council from like 9 or 10 years ago did it. It looks great. There's a bunch of families in there, and it's all subsidized housing with Section 8. And I don't know if Chelsea has it, but whoever built it with the city manages it now. So there's very strict rules. You can't pile up junk on your balcony, and you have to keep this place looking nice.
The Section 8, the low-income rules and regulations, exactly. God, that now I'm really frustrated because there's actually a solution out there.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a whole different evaluation of what the need is. Is the need that dear state of California, is the need that you just want Encinitas to densify? Or is the need that you want our restaurant workers and grocery store workers to live here and afford it? What's the need? Because those are two different answers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I find that amazing. All right. So let's get back to your group. What's it called again? It's called
Encinitas Neighbors Coalition.
Okay.
And the website will be encneighbors.org. There's nothing there now. I've literally been working on it today.
Okay. And how many groups do you have so far in Encinitas?
I have 3 committed, but I think there's only 4 or 5 online right now because there's only that many projects that have started, and so that the neighbors are going, oh my God, we got to fight this.
And the goal is to get an Encinitas group. And then from there, will you talk to the other groups in Southern California? Because I remember last time we talked, you were talking about places like, where was it? It wasn't Newport Beach, but it was up in Orange County somewhere. They've got a group together. And so there's a lot of pretty powerful voices out there. They're just not together.
Yes, but they are now. This is the exciting part. They are with an organization called United Neighbors. And I've already connected with them, and so United Neighbors is helping all of these small groups like ours.
Gotcha.
With legislation and filing opposition letters and lobbying. It's a new thing. People in all these smaller towns don't know how to do that stuff.
Right.
So there is a group that kind of did an all call. We need the cities to organize and put your groups together, and let's fight this at the state level. Right. So with Encinitas Neighbors Coalition, we can have some people working with that statewide group, which we've already submitted some opposition letters, while we're servicing the smaller groups in Encinitas and helping them share information.
That's fascinating. I'm really glad to hear that's happening. I thought what Dan Vaughn and his group, it was the Encinitas residents for
responsible development.
Yep. And they've been doing some great work as well. But this seems like this is the one way that you're actually going up to the source of the problem.
Yeah.
And talking directly with them, because like I just mentioned, it's kind of tough that when the state comes down and says you will have to have X amount of affordable housing units, but then they say in their loophole that developers need the bare minimum. So you would actually never get to that number.
You never get to it. And that's the key to the whole thing.
So
it's a bad shell game. And people are figuring it out. So that's the hopeful thing. But our city council won't engage. So honestly, Brian, it's like an end run around the council.
Yeah.
You know, they're all in, the mayor and the council just agreed to a homeless action plan that was set up by the wife of State Senator Tony Atkins. That kind of stuff just doesn't happen. They're definitely in cahoots in some level. So she's never going to go against Tony Atkins on these bills.
Yeah.
So we're like, well, let's just do it all on our own, and we'll just build it. So that's what we're doing. I'm excited about it.
And in terms of the makeup of the city council and the mayor, so she just won in November. Is that another 4 years that she's there?
No.
Or 2?
No, it's Encinitas has a weird 2-year mayoral term.
Okay.
So every single 2 years, there's and consider this, she raised and spent over, I believe, over $100,000. It was 90 last time I looked at it, but she got a lot of money at the very end. That's not counting the PAC money. I raised and spent in the low 70s. Right there, that's $160 minimum $1,000. That doesn't count the $100,000 that came in from PACs.
Right.
We're a town of $63,000, and people are throwing that much money every 2 years into election. I just think that is ripe for problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the good news is that hopefully the Encinitas Neighbors Coalition and the United Neighbors can at least start making some headway, so that at least we have some ammo to when 2022 comes around and she has to run again, ammo against that. I mean,
yeah, we've got it. There are many people that want to keep trying, that aren't ready to give up. And you know what, Brian, I don't know how long you plan to stay here, but I'm in for the round. I'm not leaving Encinitas. I have friends who are now. I'm not. And so my only choice is to work to try to make it a little better.
Yep. No, I agree. And to answer your question, we're here for the long haul as well. We love living here, and it's just sad to see all these things that we can solve the problem. Just people don't want to solve it. And the nefarious and the cynic in me is telling me that is strictly for financial gain. But
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that's just the way the world is working right now, unfortunately. So, like you said, you just gotta continue fighting. Let's pivot here and talk to me a little bit about this homeless program that you had just mentioned.
Oh, well, let's go back 1-2 years. No, just 1 year, when the city opened up the homeless safe parking lot. And the problem with that, I'm certainly not against. I don't think anybody has ever been against finding a safe place for families and people in need to park their car for the night, so they can actually sleep in their car, which is not something you would ever want to do. But if you had to, you would want somewhere where they can sleep and not be afraid that another homeless person that's mentally deranged is going to come by and, hit their car or try to rob them or something like that. So they opened the homeless safe parking lot, but they opened it in a very secretive way. And that's what got the community so upset. Once they opened it, the state made them use the homeless figures for the entire North County. not just for Encinitas. So effectively, we have the North County regional homeless parking lot in Encinitas. So once they did that, they had to let homeless people know, because it's now a county facility. They had to say, then by the way, this is on Saxony, right across from the YMCA. They had to advertise it and say, we now have this county, it's actually state funded, facility in Encinitas. So if you're homeless and you get a message on your government provided cell phone that we're open for business in Encinitas, and you've been having a cold winter in Escondido or Temecula or Big Bear, you're gonna come down to Encinitas, right? There must be services there. Look what they just did. There's a way for me to park in my car, or if I can get a ride there, blah, blah, blah. So our homeless situation grew in the last year.
So what made the state do that?
Oh, they're doing that everywhere. It's part of, I think it's part of the Ruin California campaign. Throw more money at the homeless in ways that don't solve the problem, but create a bigger problem. So we have to throw more money at the new problem. So just like we've seen San Francisco and LA grow out of control.
Yeah.
So the policies that they did there is what Encinitas just signed up for. So where I started with the homeless parking lot was a long way of saying, we now do have a homeless problem, and the city has chosen to hire Tony Atkins's wife, who runs LaSar Development, to create a homeless action plan. That homeless action plan, their methods have never been proven. They have no metrics to look at to determine what their suggestions are. But that plan that the city just accepted, it hires a full-time city employee, that's the homeless, becomes the homeless housing manager. So he's full-time plus a pension. You know, he'll end up with a staff. That plan will continue our hotels. We're now putting homeless in 4 different hotels in our city. And so, for example, if you have family coming to town and you put them up at the Quality Inn or the Days Inn, there's no way of knowing that that's also a homeless hotel. So your relatives can wake up in the middle of the night to a police bust in the room next door, because the police are at these hotels almost every single night. Drugs, this is in Encinitas, drugs, prostitution, and violent crime.
So
Every night.
So why is this not all over the internet and all over the news?
Because the news won't cover it. The news will not cover it. There's a website in Encinitas called Encinitas Watchdog. And I'll warn anybody who gets on there, it's a Facebook site, Encinitas Watchdog. And I'll warn you, it's no holds barred there. If somebody sees something, they say something, and you get opinions all over the map. But that site has grown to over 2,000 people who have somehow been affected by either the increased crime in Encinitas or the homeless in Encinitas. I had a man poo in my yard about 4 months ago. On my walkway, and you know when it's from a human.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the press won't cover it, just like they won't cover a lot of other things. I think it's a touchy thing, and you're labeled as non-compassionate.
Yeah. Is there somebody that kind of heads a watchdog group that is keeping an eye on these hotels in particular?
Well, there is a guy on that site, that Jeff Morris, that actually bought a police scanner. He was so frustrated that the city would not report the true crime statistics. We had Sandag put out a report showing that Encinitas violent crime was up 56% in 12 months. This was just like 4 months ago. And the city completely denied it. Our mayor is so good at dancing around a topic. She's really gifted in that way, and turning bad news into no news.
Yeah.
So she danced around that, and Jeff Morris apparently went out and bought himself his own police scanner and started recording the crimes as they happen. So he literally posts things almost daily. Plus other people do too. You know, things they know or know about or have heard of. So yeah, the crime, we're waiting. We just can't wait for the next Sandag crime report. But now our mayor is the chairman of the board at Sandag. So I think we have to take that into consideration. We'll see what the numbers are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like how you called that. It's the what did you say? The Destroy California campaign.
Yeah.
Why are they? It bothers
Well,
me.
doesn't it feel like it? How can San Francisco keep getting worse and worse?
I know. And what I find fascinating about San Francisco and LA, for that matter, San Francisco took the mayor that blew it and on his watch, and we voted him governor.
I know.
I know. And let me ask you this: at least it would be a start. But if he does get recalled and a Republican goes in, I mean, that's just one hole in the dike.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But you need somebody in. It's a complete monopoly right now.
Yeah.
And to the point of to get a Republican in, I'm not convinced that's the answer either. Just get somebody in, a moderate Democrat, a non-declared, a moderate Republican. Just get somebody in that uses their brain and doesn't cave to the pressures of party politics. Yeah. I'm really tired of both sides doing that.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it is a problem from both sides, and I think it all boils down to what we talked about earlier. There's too much money involved in it, and people are making a lot of money doing these things, and nobody's the wiser because nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and there's no papers reporting on it. That's why I wrote that op-ed on the D3 appointment process. And I had to call the owner of the paper and ask him if he would print it. He said yes. So I'm not going to quit doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to, if that's one way we can reach out, then we have to do that.
Wow. And so how much has the homeless population grown in Encinitas?
Well, nobody knows. They didn't. That's the one thing. This homeless action plan did no accounting of what the problem is. They went out and interviewed some homeless individuals and reported on that, but there's no counting, no accounting, nothing. And the point in time count, that annual homeless count that happens that the county uses to gauge the need of each city, didn't happen because of COVID. So it's the weirdest thing. Our city just signed on for it. The whole homeless action plan. They paid $70,000 to Tony Atkins' wife for the plan. The plan doesn't have one cost number in it. It doesn't say what we can expect to pay, but it opens the door to buying hotels. Now we're paying for the rental on hotel rooms. It opens the door to buy hotels. So, and what people listening need to know is it's highly unusual, maybe never done, for a city our size to take on social problems. That's, California government is set up so that the counties handle social problems and the cities handle their infrastructure, traffic, and planning. You know, where do the businesses go? Where do the houses go? That's kind of the way it's set up. So now the city of Encinitas has just jumped into social worker status.
So what has the county of San Diego been doing to help Encinitas? Anything?
Well, they give us a share of the money. This, like I said, the state puts out billions of dollars, and a group called the Regional Task Force, the Regional Homeless Task Force. Regional Task Force for the Homeless is a county organization, and when the state puts out their money bucket, RTFH in San Diego is our county agency that collects it and then distributes it through the county. Sitting on the board of the Regional Task Force for the Homeless in San Diego is the guy who runs the Safe Parking Lot. I think Tony Atkins sits on it, or it's not anyone who's solved homelessness. It's kind of the machine. That's why they call it the homeless industrial complex. And by the way, if you're the guy getting hired in Encinitas to be it's called the housing manager, to be the head guy to monitor all the homeless and decide where the services go. What motivation is there for you to solve homelessness?
Right.
Solve yourself right out of a job. So, and in the meantime, we have people, if you walk down to Moonlight, you'll see anywhere from 5 to 15 homeless people there, either living in their vans or their cars or sitting on benches. and they're fine. I'm not complaining about them. They have something that's holding them back, and they need help with that.
Right.
A lot of them don't want that help. So what do you do? I don't think it works to throw more money at what's not been working.
Yeah, that's a, wow. It seemed like, at least the few times that I've been down to San Diego, it seemed like for a while there, Faulkner had, while he was mayor, seemed to have had a pretty good handle on things. I mean, there was all these programs set up where, you know, people could be walking down the street and they see a homeless person, they could call it in and say, listen, there's somebody here. And you know, maybe they're moving around, maybe they're bringing over to Father Joe's or other locations. But there was an active attempt to kind of, to at least try to figure out the problem and try to solve it. But now the last few times I've been down there was down by the ballpark at the vaccination center down there. And obviously that's ground zero for the homeless population, but it's really bad down there. So, and I mean, you got San Francisco, you got LA, and it seems like it's creeping in down here too.
Yeah, but it's not in every city, and there are other moderate climate cities in our country, and it's not like that.
Yeah.
In Encinitas, if we just enforced our no camping overnight in vehicles, if we just enforced that and didn't allow anyone to sleep in the parks, which by the way, there's a lot sleeping in our parks right now. If we just enforce, they're already on the books. They're legal to enforce. If you tell someone they can't sleep in the park, you just have to provide a place for them to go. And the county has places. There's other cities have figured this out. But no, and if you look at the way things happen, opening up the regional, North County regional safe parking lot, quit enforcing, the municipal codes of sleeping in parks and sleeping in cars. All those happen at about the same time. And when someone's found sleeping in their car, they're not told to go to the safe parking lot. There's no effort to get them up there.
Really?
It's just everything's just being ignored, and we're just looking the other way right now. Why would that be? You have to ask yourself, why would we do that?
Right.
There's a reason, and it's not what the mayor and the council are saying. I can tell you that.
Wow.
I really think these cities that are like Encinitas, that are in alignment with Senator Tony Atkins, again, whose wife is making millions helping cities not solve their homeless problems. In fact, the LA Times did a comparison of Tony Atkins' wife's income compared to Tony Atkins's rise in politics. Fascinating story. LA Times, Google Tony Atkins and Lasar, L-E-S-A-R. You'll find it quickly. They just printed it. But there's, for some reason, cities that are aligned with Tony all of a sudden turn and are going down this path. Why? And the language has changed. The language is now, we need housing. They're conflating housing and homelessness.
Yeah.
As if any of the homeless people on the street, as if most of them would want to be in their own home. A lot of them would, for sure. And for those, my heart bleeds for them. But honestly, 70 to 80% of them just have mental or addiction issues, and they need to be helped.
Yeah.
But,
and what are some of the Republican-run cities around here? I mean, are they doing things differently, or do you know?
Yeah. For example, the city of Coronado.
Okay.
They also had a municipal code, no sleeping in the parks. So in the state of California, for a city to remove a vagrant sleeping in public land, they have to have a shelter bed to put them in. So what the city of Coronado did, because they're small, they don't want to go into social services and enter that area. Okay, I already said that. Yeah. They went into the city of San Diego, right over the bridge, and they pay money to a shelter to keep beds open so they have a place to bring their vagrants.
Really?
So if they find someone sleeping in the park, an officer can say, okay, come with me, and he drives them over to the shelter bed.
Wow, unbelievable.
So their parks stay clean. In our park, in Glen Park right now in Cardiff, it's not for families anymore. I mean, the families still can get down to the playground area,
Right.
but all the benches, all of the picnic areas they look like a complete dog pile of people's stuff.
Really?
And they get in fights at night. So there's homes around the perimeter of that park.
Yeah.
And our next door thing goes off all the time on the fights at Glen Park and the yelling, weapons, the police come. I mean, we didn't have that problem literally 2 years ago.
Yeah. Coronado has the beds.
They
the
rent
cops take them.
beds.
Yeah. And do we have anything like that in Encinitas?
No.
No.
No, we have hotels, but they're set up for COVID purposes. Although we've heard rumors from homeless people that you only get a bed if you're connected. By the way, there's a guy in Encinitas that is working with the homeless on his own. He's just started talking to them and trying to figure out what they're doing and what he can do to get them help. And he interviews them when he can, and he posts on Encinitas Watchdogs.
When you say they can only get a bed if they're connected, what does that mean? Connected to who?
Well, this is according to the homeless, so I would not go down in a ball of flames over this one. Some of the homeless people that this gentleman have interviewed have said they were told they're not eligible for the hotel, and then they'll come for a hotel room. Because we are, like I said, paying for hotel rooms in 4 different hotels. They said you have to be connected. And that's been a common thread throughout the homeless that he's been talking to in Encinitas. I'm not sure, but it makes sense. There's a limited number of rooms.
Right.
So it makes sense. I'm not saying it's okay that you have to be connected at all, but it makes sense that everybody that wants a room can't get a room. Yeah. And I don't know what the system is for that.
Wow. Yeah, it's a shame that it's gotten to that point, and it sounds like it's only going to get worse. It sounds like the mechanism in place right now, like you said, doesn't really want to solve the problem, and it's as a result will get worse.
Yeah, I think so. And there are solutions out there, but we're not looking at those.
Yeah. Talk to me about. I know that you had mentioned something. There was a lawsuit that was happening. It was a bike accident that happened along the Coast Highway, where they put the new bike lane in last year when everything was shut down for COVID. They basically turned that stretch into bikes can utilize not only utilize the traffic lanes,
right,
but also they put a larger bike lane with some with a layer of barriers along it, separated from the road, and there was an accident. So tell me a little bit about what you
two things. The bike lane with the curb and bollard protected bike lane is in Coast Highway 101. That's the section between Cardiff and Solana Beach. If you know where the Kook is and you're driving south, it's that section of highway. That was put in by this mayor and council, and there have been already 25 accidents on that because of confusion and the curbs. When you talk to a cyclist, they don't want to be confined by curbs. So the cyclists were so upset about it that the city then made the traffic lane next to the bike lane a bike lane.
Amazing.
So from the beach, you have walking path, protected bike lane, narrow lane, which is cars and bikes, and then car lane. And they're all going 45 miles an hour.
And there's people walking there, and you're bouncing back and forth between the road and the bike lane, and you have to go. And so the accident that we're talking in particular.
Yes, it's different.
Yeah, what ended up happening with that?
Well, that was Roberta Walker. She was the head of Cardiff 101, and she was leaving her house. She lives on the neighborhood of, I don't remember the street, and it's not relative, but North Lucadia, somewhere around the middle. She was coming down the hill, like from Neptune, but I don't think she lived on Neptune. And she was making a right-hand turn on Coast Highway to go out into the Sharrow. You know how when you're headed southbound, there's also parked cars there?
Yep.
And she rolled the stop sign on her bike. And it's been rumored that she was in all black, but they haven't released the police report. So it was dark 100, early morning. She rolled the stop sign and got hit by a truck who never even saw her. So horrific accident, horrible, terrible damage to her body. And I don't know if that damage is permanent or not. It looked like it was something that would be. But the city just settled on that lawsuit, which is quite shocking, for $11 million. They settled for $11 million. And now so anyways, and Roberta was a staunch supporter of the Sharrows, as is our mayor and our council. And the new council member for that area, Kelly Kinsey, is also a supporter of the Sharrows. But it begs the question, what happens now with all of our Sharrow lanes and protected bike lanes that have been going in lightning speed? They're popping up everywhere. And you saw the gentleman was killed riding his bike inside the Ballard protected bike lane on Leucadia Boulevard. He was about to or had just crossed Saxony, headed towards the freeway, and he was inside the protected lane, but a truck came and turned right, and he hit the truck and was killed. So that's another lawsuit. It's really sad, young father of two. But the problem there is when you're driving your car and you're in the far right lane making a right-hand turn, you're not accustomed to looking for traffic on your right.
Right.
And that's what happened. The truck didn't know he was there. It's really sad. So I just hope we don't have something that bad on South Coast Highway and with the Cardiff section.
Right. But you said there's already been 25 minor accidents. Yeah. That was one of those things that popped up early last year when everything was shut down. Next thing you know, you go back out, and it was almost as if they put it in overnight.
They did.
It was really wild. Yeah.
They kind of took advantage of COVID.
Yep. Wow. Interesting. Well, I tell you what, this there was one more thing that I wanted to ask you about, and I got a little bit sidetracked because this stuff about the housing and the homeless and how the state is sort of dictating a non-solution just is enough to, I mean, we could go on and on for that. And what's next for you in terms of that Encinitas Neighbors Coalition? Where do you want to take that?
Well, I'd like to grow it, and I would like to, I want to be part of the machine that gets California back on the right track. I don't know what that means yet. After the election, I took some time, several weeks, couple months, just kind of reevaluating things and how I can contribute and what I want my next few years to be like. And that just seems like a really good fit for me because I feel strong about it. The state is trying to control our land use decisions in our city. They're doing it to every city, but I want to be part of the group fighting back. I think cities should get to pick for themselves what they have. Of course, so each city should have a good distribution of affordable and high-end homes. But really, how do you do that on the coast? How do you do that? You can only, I think, one of the only ways you can do it is with the city going all in for 100% affordable. For example, I'll say it real quick. In Aspen, Colorado, there's no affordable land, and they need to house all the lifties that come in each winter, right? The city of Aspen built a bunch of affordable apartments, and you have to qualify for them. You have to be a worker coming in, a seasonal worker, to get them. So, and in between, they have other qualifications, but why not do that? We're now a wealthy land city. So I think there's other solutions.
And you had, when you were running for mayor, you had some pretty good backing from some pretty wealthy, well-connected people here in Encinitas. Are you kind of getting the same sort of group that's behind you in the new the program, the Encinitas Neighbors Coalition?
I would love if they joined, but I haven't started that yet. Right now, I'm just focused on the group United Neighbors that is fighting the legislation and reaching out to the groups fighting the housing in Encinitas.
Gotcha.
It's like herding cats because none of them are coordinated yet. And I'm trying to help that process happen.
Okay.
So it's definitely very much so in the beginning. I'd hoped it would be further along by the time we talked. But
Well, that gives me an excuse to invite you back on again.
oh, goody.
No, I really enjoyed this because those are the two biggest things that I see, the biggest issues in little, just little Encinitas. But it sounds like it's just a small example of a much, much bigger problem that is the state of California.
And the state wants to control what we do.
Yep.
This SB 9, I'll just give you an example. If your neighbor wants to if it goes through and your neighbor sells their home, their property becomes much more valuable, by the way, because now land speculators are going to come in and grab the home right next door to you because they can build up to 8 units on it without any community input.
So, and I was always under the impression, especially we live about 2 miles from the beach, but we fall into the coastal commission because of the San Diego Lagoon.
Oh, interesting.
I was always under the impression that you had to get all of those various organizations, and who knows if there's any type of protected animal or protected shrubs on that property. But I was under the impression that it was almost impossible. Well, not impossible, but it cost a lot of money and took a lot of time to get any plan approved, let alone somebody coming in and doing an eight unit building. I mean,
you're right. And it has been that way, but it's like the state and our own city council have just thrown in the towel on anything environmental.
Wow.
They're just not worried about it anymore. They don't care. Because think about a whole neighborhood, a single family lot's getting bought out and 6 and 8 plexes being put in. And by the way, these are 3 and 4 stories high. They max out the lot. So there's all the trees are gone and it's just boxes. Boxes because they're going to max out the lot. The developers make a ton of money. Your neighbor who sold their house to a developer makes a bunch of money, but our town starts down a path that we'll never get back.
And I'm not familiar. Where is that happening? Where is that taking place right now in Encinitas?
In the legislature. They're trying to get it passed.
Gotcha.
1 year ago, it was called SB 50, and now they've renamed it. They've split it up, and it's called SB 9 and SB 10.
Okay, so it's not a reality yet, but
correct.
That's what they're pushing for.
Although there are cities in city of Vancouver, city of Minneapolis, city of parts of Seattle that took away all zoning. They just allow, and all single family housing. So you can buy any house or property and build whatever you want on it. It's kind of the Wild West right now for those cities.
Yeah, I find that shocking, especially in Encinitas in North County. Everyone looks at us as a surfer community, really earthy, crunchy, and as a result, things like the Coastal Commission are so aggressive. Yeah, I mean, I think that those two issues, the homeless and the high density housing, is so important, and I'm glad to see that you are involved in the way that you are with the Encinitas Neighbors Coalition, and then also with the United Neighbors as well. So I definitely want to hear more about that down the road. But in the meantime, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome, Brian. Thanks for having me. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. That was Julie Thunder, and this is the Rain Man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Rain Man's Take, observations on the world we live in. If you like the content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. You can also follow Rain Man's Take on Instagram at Rain Man's Take. Also, check out our website at www.rainmanstakepodcast.com and send your comments to rainmanstake@gmail.com. Keep an eye out for future podcasts, which will be coming out every Thursday at 5 p.m. West Coast time.